technology problem or a business model problem, and said that Apple was addressing this as a business model problem. Is that a fair contrast, or is this something else?
It's by no means a fair contrast, Mr. Chairman. I've heard this raised before. It was raised in New York. It's been raised in San Bernardino. And every time I hear this, my blood boils. This is not a marketing issue. That's a way of demeaning the other side of the argument. We don't put up billboards that talk about our security. We don't take out ads that market our encryption. We're doing this because we think that protecting the security and the privacy of hundreds of millions of iPhone users is the right thing to do. That's the reason that we're doing this. And to say that it's a marketing ploy or that it's somehow about PR really diminishes what should be a very serious conversation involving this Congress, the stakeholders, the American people. Just with respect to the New York case, Judge Ornstein last night took on this issue head on, and he said in footnote 14 on page 40, he said, "I reject the government's claim. I find Apple's activities and the position that they are taking conscientious and not with respect to PR or marketing."
Director Comey and Mr. Vance seems to suggest that the security provided by encryption on prior devices is fine, but advancing encryption technology is a problem. What do you think about that?
So it's important to understand that we haven't started on a path of changing our technology. We haven't suddenly come to the notion that encryption, security, and privacy are important. At Apple, this began back in 2009 with our encryption of FaceTime and iMessage. We've been on a path from generation to generation as the software and the hardware allow us to provide greater security and greater safety and privacy to our customers. What happened between iOS 7 and iOS 8 was that we were able to transform the encryption algorithm that is used within the software and the hardware of the phone to provide a more secure solution.
We are moving to end-to-end encryption on many devices and apps, not just Apple iPhones. Why is that happening?
I think it's a combination of things. From our perspective at Apple, it's because we see ourselves as being in an arms race with criminals, cyber terrorists, hackers. We're trying to provide a safe and secure place for the users of our devices to be assured that their information cannot be accessed, cannot be hacked or stolen. So from our perspective, that end-to-end encryption move is an effort to improve the safety and security of our phones. From the terrorist perspective, I think it's an effort to communicate in ways that cannot be detected. But the terrorists are doing this independently of the issues that we're discussing here today.
Now, if the FBI succeeds in getting the order that is in dispute that Apple has appealed to a final resolution, however long that takes, and they then get Apple to develop this device that will allow the 10 times and by the way, all of us here, we can't turn that off. So
we can show you how to do that.
well, but inside our firewall here, we can't do that. So we understand the reason, but that creates a separate vulnerability, does it not, for people whose device falls in somebody else's hands? They could willfully try 10 times and erase whatever hasn't been backed up on the device. But be that as it may, if they were to get you to develop that code and apply it and then to crack the 4-digit code to get into the device, once they get in there, they could find all kinds of other restrictions that Apple has no control over, right? With regard to apps that are on the phone, with regard to various other communications features that the consumer may have chosen to put on there. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right, Mr. Chairman. One of the most pernicious apps that we see in the terrorist space is something called Telegraph. Telegraph is an app that can reside on any phone. It has nothing to do with Apple. It can be loaded either over the internet or it could be loaded outside of the country. And this is a method of providing absolutely uncrackable communications. If what happens here is that Apple is forced to write a new operating system to degrade the safety and security in phones belonging to tens or hundreds of millions of innocent people, it will weaken our safety and security, but it will not affect the terrorists in the least.
Thank you very much. My time has expired. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Kine, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr.